washed up in Parker Cove, Canada. I talked to many folks who said they saw it. A lot of people went and analyzed it. I don't think it's ever positively determined what it is. It might have been a basking shark, but nobody knows positively. But it's gone. People cut pieces off it. The vertebrae do tend to look like shark vertebrae instead of any other kind. It's just interesting. Stuff like this washes up on the beach. But we sell a book called Monster Monster about North American lake monsters. Lake Monsters and Sea Serpents. Good book by Lauren Coleman, who's a cryptozoologist, but also an evolutionist, okay? I interviewed Jacques Boisvet for 3 hours. He collects sightings of the Lake Memphremagog creature between Vermont and Quebec, Canada. Hundreds of folks claim they've seen something in this lake up there in Lake Memphremagog. Creature's been seen in the Potomac River. There's a book about the great New England sea serpent. There's an island off Connecticut and Rhode Island called Block Island, where many folks claim they've seen creatures swimming around out there. They call it the Block Ness Monster. One washed up in 1996. Another was something else washed up in 2004. Never was identified that I know of. And I interview people all the time. And Lake Erie's apparently got one. Erie's Bessie matches Nessie. They say it's 35 feet long, has a snake-like head. It's in the newspaper once in a while about Lake Erie's monster. Okay, you can read all that for yourself. But a dead baby creature was found on the beach of Lake Erie. The guy took it home, stuffed it, and mounted it. He's a taxidermist. He said, "You tell me what it is." I don't know. Dr. Ball bought it. It's in his museum in Texas. It's never been identified. They're not sure what. It may be a fake. Nobody knows, but very interesting little critter. I interviewed the sheriff who saw that was the first guys to see the Scituate Harbor monster, 50 feet long when it washed up on the beach. Everybody started cutting pieces off. By the time they got the photo taken, it was pretty butchered up. Some people argued it's a basking shark. Others said it's a real sea serpent. The health department said, "We don't care. It stinks. We're getting out of here." And so they blew it up with dynamite. California, 1925. This critter washed up on the beach. That's the head. Here's the neck going down to the right. Just the neck was 20 feet long. Well, everybody that examined it said it was a plesiosaurus. 20-foot neck. One atheist wrote me a letter and said, "Hovind, you're so stupid." He said, "Don't you know that was a whale?" I said, "Now just exactly where is the neck on a whale?" Ought to be between the head and the flippers. He said, "It's a rare form of Bard's beaked whale." Oh, it's pretty rare, all right, with a 20-foot neck. Duh. The people who saw it said it's a plesiosaurus. Why is that so hard to believe? You know why people resist explanations like that? It goes against their theory. They like the evolution theory because it gives them freedom from God. That's why they like that theory. And we could spend all day on cryptozoology stuff. I have studied this for years and love. I've interviewed now 100 people that claim they've seen a living dinosaur. In New York, 1969, the harbor police chased something much bigger than a whale upriver. Never did catch it. Could have been a zeuglodon or a basilosaurus, I don't know. But the White River monster in Newport, Arkansas has been reported many times. Up until 1973, it apparently disappeared. Arkansas Senate passed a resolution that said it's unlawful to molest, kill, or trample the White River monster. Off the coast of Jupiter, Florida, something's been seen similar to a dinosaur swimming in the ocean out there. You can read the articles for yourself. A lot of this stuff's on my website, Dr. Dino. You can read all about this. There's a lake between New York and Vermont called Lake Champlain, where many people claim they've seen the Lake Champlain monster. I interviewed Sandy that took this picture. I said, "Sandy, do you think you saw a dinosaur?" She said, "No, I know I saw a dinosaur." She and her husband and 2 kids watched it for 10 minutes. 58 people on the Ethan Allen, which capsized earlier a couple months ago, you know, some people think they all ran to one side to see something and flipped the boat over. I don't know, maybe it's just too many Twinkies, but the captain on board back in 1898 said, if you think what I saw was a fish, it weighed 3,000 to 5,000 pounds. The Bible talks about the dragons of the waters. He shall slay the dragon that is in the sea. In Pensacola, where I live, 4 or 5 teenagers went scuba diving back in 1962. One survived the trip. Here's what he said. They were going out to this sunken ship in the Pensacola harbor called the Massachusetts. And here's what he said. I've got tons of stuff on this. He said, "We were in an Air Force rescue raft bound for a sunken ship a few miles off the coast. Midway out, we were caught in a storm and dragged out to sea. When the storm cleared, we were in a dense fog. We began to hear strange noises like the splashing of a porpoise and a sickening odor like dead fish. The noise got closer to the raft, and I heard a loud hissing sound. Out in the fog, we saw what looked like a long pole about 10 feet high sticking up out of the water. On top was a bulb-like structure. It bent in the middle and went under. It appeared several more times, getting closer to the raft. The silence was broken once again by something out of the fog. I can only describe it as a high-pitched whine. We panicked. All 5 of us put on our fins and went into the water. "Keep together and try for the ship," I yelled. After we got in the water, we got split up in the fog, and from behind I could hear the screams of my comrades, one by one. I got a closer look at the thing just before my last friend went under. The neck was about 12 feet long, brownish green and smooth looking. The head was like a sea turtle, except more elongated. The eyes were green with oval pupils. I don't know how long it was before I heard a scream. It lasted maybe half a minute. Then I heard Warren's call, "Hey, help me, it's got Brad. I've got to get out of here." His voice was cut off abruptly by a short cry. "Brad, Warren, hey, where is everybody?" I yelled back at the top of my lungs. Larry now swam with Eric and me. Warren and Brad were nowhere in sight. Right next to Eric, that telephone pole-like figure broke water. I could see the long neck and 2 small eyes. The mouth opened and it bent over. It dove on top of Eric, dragging him under. I screamed and began to swim past the ship. My insides were shaking uncontrollably. He drew a sketch of the thing that killed his friends. He said, "I finally made it to the top of the ship and stayed there most of the night. Next morning, I swam to shore, was found by the rescue unit." That's the sketch Brian McCleary drew of what he saw that killed his 4 friends. I was speaking in Fort Walton Beach, Florida one time, and Valerie Bill came to me and said, "Mr. Hovind, my stepson, Larry Bill, was one of the kids who was eaten. That story you are telling is correct." But the Pensacola News-Journal said, after they interviewed him, they said, "This is a beach town. You know, people come here to go swimming. We're not going to report that your friends got eaten by a dinosaur. We're going to report that they drowned." So that's what the newspaper said. 4 teenagers drowned. Panama City, there's something seen there similar. Youth director at a Lutheran church told me his whole youth group was in the van and they saw a creature like that in Panama City Harbor. There have been many reports of dinosaurs still living. There could be some pterodactyls still alive. The natives call the animal the Congomato. If you're in Congo, in Kenya, they call it Batamzinga. Steve Ramondi was on the Kenya Olympic running team. He called me and said, he was going to school in Louisiana. He said, "Mr. Hovind, I saw those creatures." He said, "We've got them in my village in Kenya." He said, "Their favorite food is decaying human flesh. They dig up graves and eat the bodies." They kept talking about the Congomato. Well, we could cover dinosaurs still living for hours, but there have been lots of reports of pterodactyls still around. I get calls about this from people all the time, about pterodactyls being seen in Papua New Guinea or in Indonesia or in Venezuela. Wish we had time to cover all that, about all these pterodactyl sightings. Dave Wetzel went there and said, "Man, the natives kept talking about this flying ropin that glows in the dark over in Papua New Guinea." It lives on the island right there. So what's the point? You say, "Brother Hovind, who cares?" Yeah, I think there might be some dinosaurs still alive. And I think we have really been lied to about the dinosaurs. Now, I don't think there's many, and it's probably safe to go to the dorm, okay? Don't get excited and think, "Wow, we're going to get eaten by a dinosaur." No, it's not that way. The hallway will be clear tonight, I assure you, okay? But the Indians had a legend called the Thunderbird. They said a giant bird got hit by lightning. When they found it 3 days later, the buzzards had picked the bones clean, but they said the wingspan was 20 feet and had a bony bump on the back of its head. The Indian prayer sticks, to this day, have the head of a pterodactyl on them. Now, Henry Ford put an eagle on the taillight of his Thunderbird. It should have been a pterodactyl. You blew it, Henry. French explorers Jacques Marquette and Joliet stopped near what now is the town of St. Louis and reported they saw a big ugly bird painted on the cliff on the other side in Alton, Illinois. The Indians said, "Oh, it's a Piasaw bird. A great chief killed him years ago." They painted the picture up there for years. They finally put a big metal plaque. There's me down below it for scale. They took it down for fear the plaque would fall. I guess they just recently put it back up. I don't know. But if you go to Alton, Illinois, you'll see Piasaw. You know, Piasaw Dairy Queen. It's pretty famous over there. Whatever the Piasaw bird was. Okay. And we talk a lot about that. People say, "Brother Hovind, why do you speak about dinosaurs?" Well, for one thing, Satan's using them to teach his gospel. It's time Christians, put up a defense. Christians are confused where they fit in. They are a great evangelistic tool. Kids will gather around you like crazy when you get dinosaurs. He's the chief of the ways of God. Well, then God